Did you know that 75% of people who appear perfectly productive are secretly battling constant worry, overthinking, and fear of failure? This is high-functioning anxiety, a hidden struggle that looks like success on the outside, but feels like chaos on the inside. It's often the reason you procrastinate, even when you're capable of achieving so much more. Today, we will be uncovering the surprising link between high-functioning anxiety and procrastination, and some strategies to help you break free from it. You may ask, what exactly is high-functioning anxiety? It's a term that might sound contradictory at first. How can someone be anxious and high-functioning at the same time? But this is a reality for many people who seem to have it all together on the outside, yet struggle internally. High-functioning anxiety isn't an official diagnosis, but mental health professionals use the term to describe people who appear successful, organized, and driven, while battling relentless inner stress. These individuals often excel in their careers, maintain social relationships, and manage daily responsibilities with apparent ease. Think of it as productive panic. It's like having a motor constantly running inside you, pushing you to achieve more and more, but never allowing you to rest. Here are the common signs to look out for. These signs can be subtle and often go unnoticed by others, but they can be incredibly distressing for the person experiencing them. Number 1. Overthinking every decision. Should I send this email now or later? This constant second-guessing can be paralyzing and lead to significant delays in completing tasks. Number 2 is perfectionism that paralyzes you. If I can't do it perfectly, why start? This need for perfection can prevent people from even beginning a project, fearing that it won't meet their high standards. Number 3 is fear of judgment. What if they think I'm not good enough? This fear can be so overwhelming that it stops people from sharing their ideas or taking risks. Number 4 is saying yes to everything to avoid disappointing others. This can lead to taking on too much and feeling overwhelmed, as they strive to meet everyone's expectations. Unlike generalized anxiety disorder, which can disrupt daily life, people with high-functioning anxiety often succeed in their careers or relationships, but at a cost. They may appear to be thriving, but inside they are constantly battling stress and exhaustion. Their anxiety fuels their productivity, but it's exhausting. They might achieve great things, but their relentless drive can leave them feeling drained and burnt out. Let's get an example of how this might present itself. Consider someone who is preparing for an important presentation. Imagine someone who stays up until 2 a.m. preparing a presentation, not because they need to, but because they're terrified of making a mistake. They go over every detail repeatedly, driven by the fear of failure. They'll ace the presentation, but their mental health pays the price. The constant pressure to perform perfectly takes a toll, leaving them feeling exhausted and anxious, even as they achieve their goals. Now let's discuss the procrastination paradox, a phenomenon that affects many people, especially those with high-functioning anxiety. High-functioning anxiety often leads to procrastination, a behavior that can be puzzling to both the individual and those around them, even in people who seem on top of everything. These individuals might appear organized and efficient, but beneath the surface, anxiety is driving their actions. Why? Because anxiety creates a fear of imperfection. This fear can be so paralyzing that it prevents people from even starting tasks. You delay starting tasks because you're afraid you won't meet your own sky-high standards. This fear of not being perfect can be overwhelming, or you over-prepare for tiny tasks, leaving no energy for bigger goals. For instance, you might spend hours organizing your desk instead of tackling a major project. You put off applying for a promotion because you're scared your application won't be flawless. The fear of rejection can be a significant barrier. Or you spend hours researching the best way to start a project, but never actually start. This endless preparation can be a form of procrastination. Or you even procrastinate on replying to a text because you're overthinking the right words. This isn't laziness. It's a manifestation of anxiety. It's your brain trying to protect you from the discomfort of possibly failing. This protective mechanism, however, often backfires, but in reality, procrastination makes the anxiety worse, creating a vicious cycle. The more you procrastinate, the more anxious you become, and the harder it is to break free. So what's the science behind the cycle? Research shows that anxiety triggers the brain's fight, flight, or freeze response, and for people with high-functioning anxiety, it's often freeze disguised as fight. Your brain thinks, if I avoid this task, I avoid the risk of criticism or failure. But avoidance fuels guilt, which spikes anxiety, and the cycle repeats. One study found that procrastination is strongly linked to fear of negative evaluation. This means that the more you worry about being judged, the more you'll delay taking action. Now, how can you break the cycle? It starts with understanding that anxiety and procrastination often go hand in hand. When you feel anxious, you might put off tasks to avoid the discomfort, but this only increases your anxiety in the long run. Recognizing this pattern is the first step towards breaking it. You can harness your anxiety as a strength instead of letting it sabotage you. Anxiety can be a powerful motivator if you learn to channel it correctly. It can push you to prepare thoroughly and pay attention to details, but it's crucial to manage it so it doesn't become overwhelming. Here's how. The first is to reframe perfection. Instead of "this has to be perfect," try "done is better than perfect." Start small. Send the email, draft the first paragraph, take the first step. Progress, not perfection. By focusing on completing tasks rather than perfecting them, you reduce the pressure and make it easier to get started. Instead of "this has to be perfect," try "done is better than perfect." Start small, send the email, draft the first paragraph, take the first step. Progress, not perfection. Each small step you take builds momentum and makes the next step easier. The second strategy is to use the 2-minute rule. If a task feels overwhelming, commit to just 2 minutes of work. Often, starting is the hardest part. Once you begin, you might find it easier to continue working beyond those initial 2 minutes. If a task feels overwhelming, break it down into smaller, more manageable parts. This makes the task seem less daunting and more achievable. Commit to just 2 minutes of work. This small commitment can help you overcome the initial resistance to starting a task. Once you get going, you might find it easier to keep working. Often, starting is the hardest part. By breaking the task into smaller steps and committing to just a few minutes, you can reduce the intimidation factor and make it easier to begin. Another way is to schedule worry time. Give yourself 10 minutes a day to write down fears. This practice helps you acknowledge your anxieties without letting them dominate your entire day. Give yourself 10 minutes a day to write down fears. This allows you to process your worries in a controlled manner, preventing them from overwhelming you at random times. This contains anxiety so it doesn't hijack your day. By setting aside specific time for your worries, you can keep them from intruding on your productivity and peace of mind. Lastly, you can practice self-compassion. Talk to yourself like you'd talk to a friend. Be kind and understanding with yourself, especially when you make mistakes. Talk to yourself like you'd talk to a friend. It's okay to make mistakes. I'm learning. Remind yourself that everyone makes mistakes and that they are opportunities for growth. It's okay to make mistakes. I'm learning. By treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend, you can reduce the harsh self-criticism that often accompanies anxiety. For example, if you are a writer with high-functioning anxiety, you might set a timer for 15 minutes to write a messy first draft, knowing you can edit later. This approach helps you get your ideas down without the pressure of making them perfect right away. You might set a timer for 15 minutes to write a messy first draft, knowing you can edit later. This allows you to focus on getting your thoughts out without worrying about perfection, knowing you can edit later. This method helps you separate the creative process from the editing process, making it easier to start writing. The goal? Progress over pressure. By focusing on making steady progress rather than achieving perfection, you can reduce anxiety and increase productivity. The key insight to all this is that procrastination isn't your enemy, it's a signal. It's your mind's way of saying, "This task is triggering my fear of not being enough." By addressing the anxiety behind procrastination, you can stop fighting yourself and start working with your strengths. You don't have to be perfect to be successful. You just have to be brave enough to start. So what have we discussed today? High-functioning anxiety masks itself as productivity but thrives on fear. Procrastination is often a symptom, not a flaw. It's your brain avoiding discomfort. Small, compassionate steps can break the cycle and turn anxiety into action. You're not lazy or broken. You're human, and growth begins when you replace self-judgment with curiosity. That will be all for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more mental health content. Together, we can help break the stigma surrounding mental health. See you in my next video.